So we're here at the Rolls-Royce Enthusiast Club here near Towcester in Northamptonshire, and we thought what better place and opportunity to decide what we think is the best Rolls-Royce or Bentley, specifically the Crewe built era cars. So we're talking pre-BMW and pre-VW era cars. So, Paul, let's just take a little stroll down memory lane and look at this selection of models. Now, it's worth saying we don't have every model of Rolls-Royce and Bentley ever produced. That would be ridiculous. But we've got a little smattering of them, starting with this, Paul, the Bentley Eight.
Yeah, Bentley Eight. Well, it's a Mulsanne, isn't it? It's the sort of entry-level Bentley of the era. It was designed to appeal to a younger driver, actually, I think, with the mesh grille and things like that. Rare car, this, actually, unusual.
We've driven this for a road test video, which will appear separately, but I was really impressed with this because, as you say, it's the entry-level car, sub £50,000 price point when it first came out, mesh grille. The twin headlights are actually a retrofit on this car. This is an 87 car, and the twin headlights didn't come till 89, but this is 9/10 of a Turbo R without the list price, basically.
Yeah.
So I would say, actually, this is kind of up there for me because I think it's got all the engineering, development and progress that happened from Silver Shadow right through to when this came out in 84. I think it's a culmination of everything that was great about that era of Rolls-Royce and Bentley.
I think if I've got the mesh grille, I want the turbo engine, if I'm honest. Having had a Turbo R,
yes, that's true.
I think I'd miss
the
that.
Turbo I never had the mesh, of course. But anyway, it's one of those things. I think this is a really good candidate for what I think is a peak Crewe car. But we don't have to settle for that. We can go for something a little more unusual. What about a Corniche?
Well, this is sort of Crewe built and sort of isn't. The body was essentially from the Crewe era, although this is a Mulliner Park Ward car, so it was built off the line.
Because Mulliner Park Ward weren't the first coach builder for the Corniche, were they? There was another guy.
James Young did a two-door version of the Shadow, but it was basically just a Shadow without back doors. Mulliner Park Ward did.
Because he went bust, didn't he?
Yeah, they did well. They were they were killed off by Rolls-Royce producing their own version of the two-door Shadow, which was a bit more adventurous. But of course they had an advantage because they were part of Rolls-Royce, the in-house coach builders, so they could get part bodies supplied and do their own thing.
And were there some bespoke finishing touches for the Mulliner Park Ward versions?
Well, yeah, I mean, the car had this rear wing line here, things like that, which James Young just couldn't have managed to do, I don't think, so not profitably anyway. So this is quite an unusual car, really. But
and historically significant because it didn't come out in sort of February, March '71 when Rolls-Royce was busy going bankrupt.
Yeah, well, I mean, they launched it at a bad time. Yeah, I mean, I heard a rumour that apparently customers were asked to pay for their servicing bills in cash at the time, which you can imagine some red faces there, the wealthy types turning up to get their Shadows back from service, yeah.
But I don't know, this is I mean, I'm already undecided because this is a good candidate as well. I mean,
yeah,
I think in terms of longevity, the Corniche name certainly sort of lived for a long time.
Yeah,
right?
It went on until the 80s, yeah.
So, coupe and convertible, of course, certainly very special.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's kind of up there, I reckon. We've done two Bentleys, we need to go to Rolls-Royce, we need to go to the Spirit of Ecstasy, really, and here we've got a Silver Cloud, the last of the coach-built ones, right?
The Cloud is a real car, a real exotic car, isn't it? It's from the time when a Rolls-Royce really was something fancy. The Shadow and the Spirit, they're a little bit more everyday, aren't they? Whereas this, you saw that go past in the street, I imagine, in the era when these were new. I'm not that old. And, you stop to see what
real sense of occasion, isn't it? Yeah. And this being a Silver Cloud 3, I think it's demarked by the twin headlights for the North American market because they wanted twin lights, I think, at that point for legislation reasons. But, I mean, in many ways, the engineering that makes a Silver Cloud 3 is largely what was carried into the more radical Silver Shadow, which we'll look at in a little bit. But, I don't know, in terms of sheer presence and opulence, a Silver Cloud's got to be up there as well, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the standard body as well, the standard steel body. So, yeah, they all look the same, and you knew what you were getting. They were Rolls-Royce when it came past, yeah.
We have done a video on a Silver Cloud, so do go and check that out in due course. But, yeah, I don't know, there'll be many that opine something like a Silver Cloud as the last of the true coach-built cars, proper sort of luxury.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can see why this would appeal. It sort of predates my own interest in the marque, to be honest, but I think it's no less spectacular for it. But
yeah, I mean, these drive beautifully. That you can just feel the engineering as you drive them, and you can see where the money went. Yeah, as a classic today, they really do feel special.
So listen, we've done 80s, we've done kind of 70s,
and
this is kind of 50s/60s. We're going to hop back to the 80s now because we're going to look at a Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit 2. So, of course, the Silver Spirit came out in 1980, the new SZ generation, which also spawned the Bentley 8 that we've already looked at. But this is a Spirit 2, 1990, this one. So this has had loads of changes done to it since it came out in 1980.
Fuel injection for a start, things like that. Yeah.
Fuel injection, ABS, it's got engine management, Bosch Motronic.
That's right.
Engine management, it's got an electronicry in the dashboard and such like. So it's definitely a much more advanced car than kind of any of the ones we've looked at, actually, because the electronic dashboard is not in that Bentley 8 at the far end there. But I don't know. This is the Silver Spirit is kind of the accessible Rolls-Royce now. I mean, you can buy them for £4,000 or £5,000. Although I'm not sure I'd want to trust a £4,000 or £5,000 example. But I don't know. It's the accessible Rolls-Royce if there is such a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's in many ways a Silver Shadow 3, isn't it? In some respects, you can argue with me in the comments all day long. It was a stopgap, wasn't it? They had to reuse the Silver Shadow platform because they didn't have the cash to do anything else. So the car was a bit constrained by that. They actually used some clever styling tweaks, like these rectangular lights and the big flat bonnet, just to make it seem bigger than it actually was for the American market. Because in reality, it's pretty much identical in dimension to the Shadow, but they just had to make it look a bit bigger.
Yes, I think isn't the grille like 3 inches wider or something like that than the Silver Shadow grille? So it makes to give it more presence.
Slightly lower, but by American standards, of course, it was a small car next to the Cadillacs, and the money they were charging there to make it look bigger than it really was. So it's quite a clever thing to have done, really.
I mean, we've been out in this car today, haven't we? And I have to say, I thought the way it drove was superb.
Yeah, they're much more modern driving than any of the others. Yeah.
I mean, the V8 engine by this point, 6 3/4, is up to what, 240 horsepower?
230-ish. Yeah.
Something like that.
No one really knows for certain, but yeah, it's around
adequate.
there,
They quoted it, but it was definitely over 200 horsepower by the time you get to this version. So, I don't know. This is proving to be harder than I thought it would be. I thought I'd be more emphatic with this. So let's go on to Silver Shadow, because actually what we've got here...
Yeah, we've got 1 and 2 here.
We've got a Silver Shadow 1, so this is an early example. This is actually 1970.
Pop fact for you, if you want to spot a Shadow 2, just look for the front spoiler, and usually the fog lights as well.
Yes, okay, so this is a Shadow 1, which first came out in 1965. This is a 1970 example, and it's a long wheelbase.
Yeah.
And they were still called long wheelbase. I think they called it Silver Wraith after about 77 or something.
Yeah.
But this was the game changer, wasn't it, for Rolls-Royce? Because monocoque construction.
Yeah, this was a real technical jump for Rolls-Royce, whereas the Spirit was just a gentle evolution. Whereas when the Shadow first came out, it was a really new direction for Rolls-Royce. A big gamble to take on the cost of developing a monocoque body shell as well. Yeah.
And yet, underneath the skin, the engine and gearbox are straight out of the Silver Cloud that we've just looked at. So
yeah, they were. Yeah, the early.
I mean, this has got the 6 3/4 one by this era, but 65 it was still using the engine from the Cloud. So
they jumped into hydropneumatic suspension and things like that though as well. So it did become a lot more complicated as a proposition than the previous cars. And the 2 just built on the success of the 1, and you got the rack and pinion steering and the more modern.
Yeah, well, let's move on to this one, because this one belongs to notable independent specialist Nigel Sandell. And
this is the nicest one you're going to drive, to be honest.
This is the Series 2, and what Nigel doesn't know about Rolls-Royce and Bentleys isn't worth knowing, quite frankly. But so this is a late 70s car. So this is therefore the Series 2, which has got rack and pinion steering, improvements to the suspension, and like you say, visually we've got the spoiler and the spotlights, haven't we?
Yeah.
Here, but I don't know. It's I think this is amazing, because if you think it's a 13, 14-year-old design by this point in the late 70s, and yet actually it's still imperious. I think it's just fabulous.
Yeah, and they drive in a very modern way. Yeah.
And like you say, the SZ that we've just looked at, the Silver Spirit, is largely a carryover of this generation of Silver Shadow anyway. Yeah. So, I love this, and I think the way this drives compared to the Series 1 behind you is chalk and cheese. They're so different, because they've refined the engineering, the brakes, the suspension, the engine, everything about it was so different by the time you get to the Shadow 2. I just think it's really impressive. So, yeah, this for me is another sort of high bar for Rolls-Royce. And of course we think about Rolls-Royce having a really turbulent period in the 1970s when they went bust, but that was the aviation sector. The car business was doing quite well. So that's why it was sort of spun off and ultimately sold to Vickers, I guess, because it was still a genuine going concern, and that was testimony to the products they were producing. And they sold over nearly 40,000.
The Shadow was a big success, yeah.
So it's... I don't know, it's probably time to decide, Paul. I mean, we've not covered a huge number of Rolls-Royce and Bentleys from the back catalogue that we could mention. So if you feel there's a car we've absolutely missed out, do mention it in the comments. But I think it's time to sort of, pull what's a peak Rolls-Royce / Bentley Crewe era car for you,
Well,
Paul?
in the absence of a late model Turbo R in this lineup,
Yes.
I would go for the Cloud. I just think it's lovely, and I've driven a couple, and you're probably expecting me to go for the Shadow or something, and I do like them, but the Cloud certainly is a lover of classic cars. I think it's a real sense of occasion every time you get in the thing, and you just know that, you know, the first owner of that car was someone, you know, properly wealthy, and, you know, to the level I'm not going to get.
Probably chauffeur driven.
Yeah, I just love it, and you know, everybody still looks at one of those, you know, when it goes down the street. So for me, that's sort of peak.
Well, there we are. So I'm still deciding, but I'm going to actually go with the car right behind you. I've decided, because
Yeah.
I think the Silver Shadow 2 is the perfect compromise between the pioneering Silver Shadow 1 and actually the Silver Spirit that we drove recently as well. And so I think the Silver Shadow 2 for me represents a very high watermark for the Crewe car maker in Rolls-Royce and indeed Bentley, guys. I mean, Bentley was a shadow of itself, if you pardon the pun, by the time of this car. But
yeah, hardly ever any Bentley T's. Yeah.
Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 2, I think, is probably my selection as a peak Crewe-built car, certainly of that sort of kind of era. So anyway, listen, I know we've left loads of cars out, and as I say, Paul's mentioned the Turbo R, and there are probably countless others that we've left out. So why don't you list in the comments either which one of these then you like, or if there's any others we've missed out. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.